Hey, so you're at or near rock bottom. This is exactly where I. If you have seen my previous video, which was basically yesterday, you'll know that that's exactly where I'm at. So I've got no job. I've got no prospects of job. I've got very little money, but I do have my purpose and my passion, and I do have the thing that I've been working towards my whole life. And I'm trying to bring that to fruition, and I'm going through a hell of a time doing that. So, what normally, when we try to change, what normally happens? We either do nothing, we sit in it because we have no way to get out of it, and we sit in our thoughts, in our feelings, in our emotions, and nothing changes, and we just get overwhelmed day by day by day. The other thing is that we get this burst of energy and we make these big claims and these big proclamations, and we get this big head of steam. We rise our energy and we get high hopes, and we go out and we try to make all these changes. We use willpower. So I think I don't need to tell you that that doesn't really work. It works for as long as you can keep your willpower in. We think that this is discipline, but I've found that that's just exhausting. And in the end, it's like when you kind of crash, you think, oh well, it's just me, I'm broken. I've found a different way. So I have deliberately put myself into this state. I have made a huge bet that my system works enough for me to pull myself out of the lowest point that I've been in. So I don't have a support network. It's up to me to pull myself out of this. And I'm go about it very differently. So when people sort of say there's three steps, for me there are three steps. And what I've found in doing this work is that there's models that we can apply, or we can take a systems approach. So we don't just do one thing. A system, the simplest system is three parts. So if you can come at this from three different ways, you get perspective. If it's just two, it tends to be this or that, and it's kind of this struggle. But if we can bring a third point, then it actually helps us to navigate and to orient. When we get into orientation and figuring out where we are, it happens on an axis, this 3 point axis. So, like I said, I've been experimenting, and what I normally do is put myself into these situations as deep as I can go, and then it's just something that I'm good at. I'm able to actually identify the pattern and read the pattern and then shift that pattern. So the first step might seem like going backwards. And that's because we think when we're going to change something, we're going to race forward. But what I found, and this is what I did this morning. So this is day 2 of in real time. And so if what I've found is that if I sit with the current situation, now I'm using that word specifically because current means it's got a charge to it. And the situation that we find ourselves in has a charge to it. There's kind of all these thoughts and feelings and emotions and things that have brought us to where we are. And those things can be heavily charged, which means they've got a negative kind of feel to them. And this is the things that are actually bringing us down and making us feel like shit. So if we sit with the thoughts and just, instead of going, you just sit with them, you just feel them. And what I've found is that if you do that for long enough, they'll shift. And I have a whole system around this. In fact, at the end of this video, there's a link to another video that shows you how to create that initial shift. Because all we need is just get that little bit of relief, that little bit of coming back from the pattern that we're in. And what we're trying to do is bring ourselves back into a neutral state. We're not trying to change anything at this stage except to come back from what we're in. Now, like I said, it might seem like we're going backwards, but if you try and do it from where you're at, with the energy that you're currently in and the patterns, even if you've got this big wave of inspiration, a big wave of motivation to change, like I said, it's going to take willpower to but if you wind it back and build from scratch, you've got a much better chance of achieving success. Success just means to continue. But if you're trying to continue with this pattern and then you're layering all these other things on top, it just gets messy and gets chaotic. And like I said, we all know that that's unsustainable for the most part. If you have success doing that way, cool, awesome. I've just found that it's not sustainable. And that if I don't change the underlying pattern, then nothing really changes. So once and I literally did this morning. So I went back and I brought it all back, and I kept wanting to leap forward, and I was like, no, bring it back. And I was like, what does my system need? Okay, so at the moment, I'm going, I've got to do this, I'll try this, and I'll do this way. And you're coming up with all these different, like, I'll do this, I'll change this. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, what does my system actually need right now? And to be honest, my system doesn't need any more action or any more activity or any more ideas or any more motivation. It just needs to chill for a second. And we just normally don't give ourselves time for this. But so I've got sort of some notes that as I go through all this stuff, I document it. And so it's like, okay, my system just needs to settle for a second. And I need to take stock of where I'm at. And forget about the 50 different ideas and because I'm just reacting. I wake up and it's like, oh, I'll try this. And then, but there's a reason that I'm in the situation that I'm in. It's because of these old patterns that I need to deal with. So I need to settle my system first. Then I need to just soak for a bit. It's like sitting in a bath. And just, we think, oh, settle right. Okay, I've settled now. What's the next step? It's not if we remove the idea of steps, because steps is like, okay, one, and then. But if we kind of come into this idea of phases, and we let that phase kind of become a part of us, and then we kind of just can layer another phase on top of it. So from that, coming back into that neutral state, so my system starts to settle, and my mind starts to settle, and my emotions start to settle, and I can start to think clearly and see clearly. And so from there, I want to create intentions. What does my system need? My system right now needs peace. It needs... So an intention means to stretch towards. We're creating the space with which action will occur. If our intentions are frantic, if our intentions are, I've got to do this right now, if everything's on a time and we're stressed, okay, the outcomes are going to be frantic, stressed, and chaotic. If we set a different intention, again, this is going to seem like you're going backwards, but it's not. We're stabilizing the system, and we're building a stable structure, and we're building a stable environment. If we create the right conditions, change will happen naturally. Okay, I've done this time and time again. I've never had at this point where there's real consequences if I fail here, because I won't be able to eat. Like I said, I don't have anyone that I can go to, and I'm not going to. I'm going to, I know enough about my own abilities that I can bring myself out of this. So I set intentions, and I intentionally set a certain number of them. In my sort of self-healing system or program, whatever you want to call it, that I've developed, I found that intentions are more than just positive thinking. You've got to, and at the end of the video, I'll take you to the experience of what I call dynamic self-awareness. So there's 3 experiences, and one of them is about feeling mind, body, energy in our hands, and we sort of can link it. So when you think of have a negative thought, it generates an emotion. Okay, if you have positive thoughts, positive emotions. We can't have opposite. Do you know what I mean? You can't have a positive thought and feel negative. It shifts, and the same thing happens the other way. If we're in a uplifting mood, we're going to have uplifting thoughts, and so you can take that and narrow it down to words, and you can go as deep into this as you want. But if we sit with these certain words, and like I said, we're building, creating the conditions, and this, you just got to sit with it a bit and just come up with 4 words. That's like, what does my system read now? My system needs to settle, or it needs peace, it needs strength. I need strength to get through this. Okay, and so we're building these. We're building this model of change, this felt sense. Because the thing is that, and this is the third thing I've got to understand, that patterns make pathways. So the old pattern was taking you down a certain path. And in order to go onto a different path, you've got to come off the one you're on. You've got to deal with the patterns that were creating the conditions that took you down that path first. That's why I say you've got to bring it back to neutral first. Settle the system. Find out what your system needs. This means getting in touch with who you really are. You can call it your soul, you can call it whatever you want. Okay, but your deeper sense of self, who you really are. And there's ways to get in to connect with that. And one of those ways is to start with neutral. Okay? So we want to create new patterns. Again, one of the mistakes that we make is we go, right, let's go. And as soon as we go back to that old speed, it's the same pattern. And we start getting caught up in the same thoughts and then we start going, and we get frantic again, and then it all turns to chaos. So the speed is important. To begin with, you've got to go slow. It's going to feel a bit weird unless you connect with it. As soon as you actually go with that whole slowing things down, you start to feel more. You start to become more aware. As soon as you start to speed up, your awareness shuts down. You get caught in these old rhythm, in these old paths, and these old thought patterns, and you get the same outcomes. Slowing it down, finding your own rhythm, and that means literally finding a rhythm in everything that you do. It's almost like I call it intentional movement, dynamic movement. You're creating. It's like a dance. And you just keep going between these 3 things. You keep going, okay, back to neutral. What are my intentions? Okay, what is my rhythm? What is my speed? When you do that, because before, if you're just all chaos and your thoughts and your intentions are everywhere and you're going at 100 miles an hour and then you're trying to do this and trying to do that, your signal, you can't hear your signal. There's too much noise for who you are to shine through. The minute you slow it all down and remove the noise, you start to tune into your signal, and your signal will show you the way. Okay, this is one of the biggest breakthroughs that I've found, is that your deepest self wants you to succeed. It's a part of the system. The system wants to sustain itself, and we're no different. But we need to be able to tune into that signal, and then once that signal, that becomes our source. And then we get different resources. Okay? It's called mind-body awareness for a reason, is that because the mind and the body are dealing with the same thing, just from slightly different angles. So I firmly believe that each one of us is here, and I'm not trying to be, esoteric or hippy-dippy, but I just think that we're all here for a reason. We've all got our own path, we've all got our own purpose, and we've all got something that brings us alive. And that's what I've been playing with. I've never had the courage, or it's not even that. But anyway, to bring it out there. Like if I was, I'll go and get a real job, but that's not what I'm here for. So I'm here to do this work. So if I ignore that, then my life's not going to be successful. You know what I mean? I can force it to be, but in the end, that just falls down. So, 3 things, always 3 things. Or, if you're looking for structure, 4 things. But get clear. Just clear. Don't worry about the next steps. Just come back, sit in it, clear. Because as soon as you'll feel it. As soon as you start to get out of your zone, all this tension will start to come in. You'll feel it. So you just bring it back, clear, set your intentions again, and you'll start to connect with certain things. You'll start to connect with yourself. You'll start to connect with your environment, with other people. You'll start to connect with who you are, why you're here, and what you're meant to be doing. That's what I'm going to show people in real time. Because at the moment I'm not there, but I'll get there. All right? And then go from there. So, yeah, check out the video above, and it will kind of take you through how to shift that state. Because in order to do all this work, you need to be able to get out of what you're in. So I've found a way that you can simulate that shift, and then I'll show you how you can do it using mind-body awareness. And then please, when you're ready, if you want to check it out more, go to my site, join up to the newsletter, and then go from there. All right? And yeah, keep following along, and yeah, we'll do this together. Why not? Have a go. Let's do it.